What is it about mankind that separates us from the animal kingdom? Why has mankind progressed and developed while the animal kingdom remains static? How has mankind been able to advance from being simple cavemen to becoming space-exploring astronauts? Because of our ability to think. Animals rely on instinct. Humans are able to reflect, reason, and make decisions. Mankind is where it is today because of great leaps forward in thinking. Without these advances, mankind would not have been able to progress from its humble beginnings. All of the great ancient civilizations contributed to the worlds of maths, language, engineering, education, arts, and science. However, each civilization had one area of expertise in which they contributed more than any other, in which they spurred the great leap forward in thinking. It is widely accepted that ancient Greek philosophy is responsible for shaping the thought of the present-day Western world, for it is the ancient Greeks who first rejected mythological explanations, choosing instead to focus upon the role of reason and inquiry, the first step to opening the doors to the world of critical thinking. The art of strategy, which can now be found in boardrooms all over the world, owes its origins to ancient China, specifically to Sun Tzu and his book, The Art of War. His theories on strategy are now commonplace in various aspects of life, from corporate buyovers and mergers, to personal interaction, and even sports psychology. Modern mathematicians, however, owe their thanks to classical India, for it was they who discovered the zero and invented the decimal system. Classical India is also responsible for creating the numeral system. This method of expressing every possible number using just 10 symbols has since been used to express a boundless number of mathematical problems, equations, and figures. The Islamic Golden Era is credited with the origins of many educational institutions that are now commonplace in cities around the globe. It gave birth to the world's first degree-granting university, formed numerous public lending libraries, and used astronomical observatories as research institutes as opposed to private observation posts. Though famous for its colosseums, the real legacy left by the Roman Empire is the development of infrastructure. The construction of aqueducts introduced fresh running water to towns and cities. This water was used for drinking, replenishing the numerous public baths, and for washing away waste. And lest we forget, the network of roads left by the Romans, many of their original rights of way are still in use throughout present-day Europe. Each of these great civilizations contributed greatly to present-day society due to their thirst for increased knowledge and understanding and the desire to improve society. Their leaps forward in thinking advanced the human race. Just as civilizations have changed their thinking, individuals have had to alter their mindset. Critical mind skills have become key to the progression of individuals in the workplace. There is a transformation taking place that is reforming the business world, the requirements of the employer, and the education of future generations. This reform is the entrusting of the workforce to think for themselves, to be creative, innovative, and solve problems. Gone are the days where workers simply followed instructions. Today's information age requires employees to be productive in their thinking, have flexibility in their approach, and take responsibility for their output. Prior to the Industrial Revolution, over 90% of Europe's population lived in the countryside, working the land and living a simple existence. Then along came machines that extended our physical capabilities. They could perform the same tasks faster and more efficiently, thus beginning the Industrial Revolution. Nevertheless, these machines still required human hands to operate them, and former farmhands who moved from the country to the towns and cities were forced to alter their thinking and acquire new skills. As machines and technology took hold in the manufacturing industry, workers were again required to transform, as automation impaired the number of jobs available. A completely new skill set was needed, as big business created a generation of lawyers, accountants, brokers, and consultants. These knowledge workers were no longer selling a manufactured product, but a service. We are currently in the process of a widespread and fast-moving change. The information age is upon us, providing machines that expand our mental capabilities rather than improve our physical capacity. Just as machines took on the physical workload during the Industrial Revolution, they are now able to take on the mental workload. Engineers, accountants, and scientists no longer perform routine calculations and analysis. Developments in software have automated the process, eroding at the speciality of many knowledge workers. The information age is forcing the worker into a new era, an era where repetitive thinking skills are redundant. The new resource is the mind, but success will depend upon the ability to conceptualize ideas, to dissect existing technologies, processes, and practices, and then innovatively and creatively fuse them together. Therefore, core thinking skills are a key requirement for the next stage in the progression of the worker, and critical mind skills provide a platform from which creativity and innovation can grow.
Welcome to Critical Mind Skills, a series designed to make you a more effective thinker. In this series, we will be looking at a whole variety of techniques that will allow you to make better decisions, to make reasoned decisions, to make effective decisions. We will look at how you can evaluate evidence or information before deciding to accept it or to reject it. These are the very techniques and skills that have been used by the world's greatest thinkers, inventors, and scientists throughout history. (1903) has gone down in history as one of the most significant years of the human race. Something happened in that year that changed our world once and for all. Today, we have no hesitation in taking a flight from one place to another place. But before 1903, that was not at all possible. Two brothers, Orville Wright and Wilbur Wright, powered the first engine aeroplane that year. The Wright brothers were critical thinkers, and they used critical thinking techniques to overcome the massive obstacles that they faced. Now let's look at Thomas Edison, one of the greatest inventors the world has ever produced. He is famous for inventing the light bulb, the phonograph, which is a record player, and inventing so many new gadgets that he holds up till today 1,093 patents. He established the first industrial research lab in the world. How did he come through on all his breakthroughs? What was his secret of success? Well, Edison openly declares that his success came directly from questioning the work of others. He did not necessarily always start from scratch. He looked at what others had done, he questioned what they had done, and from his questioning, he came up with new and better ideas. Thomas Edison was an accomplished critical thinker. He had mastered the techniques and the methodology of critical thinking. Now let's look at our third example. Albert Einstein, the famous scientist who was born in Germany in 1879, world famous for theory of relativity, won the Nobel Prize in Physics in 1921, nominated as the Person of the Century by Time magazine in 1999, wrote more than 300 scientific articles, more than 150 non-scientific publications. How did this man do it when others before him could not achieve the same level of success? He questioned the information and the assumptions that others before him had taken for granted. Einstein was a critical thinker who questioned and did not take information at face value. Let's look at the next example. Robert Noyce. Noyce has become world famous for inventing the integrated circuit, or the IC. Noyce's invention led to the computer revolution directly. It's also progressed the electronics industry significantly. Noyce is an expert in physics and electronics. He has mastered the art of critical thinking. These scientists, all of them, have changed our world because of their persistent questioning of information that came across their way. They have improved the world for us. All of these scientists had one thing in common. They were all skeptics. They did not readily accept the information that others did. They questioned every piece of information relentlessly. That's the hallmark of a good scientist. All good scientists are skeptics. They only accept information after they have considered it carefully. They seek information that is complete. They look for information that's not questionable, that is not disputable. We have to make a lot of decisions in our daily lives. How do we make decisions? Decisions are made when the information we have is complete, it's clear, and is unquestionable. If the information is questionable, it becomes difficult for us to make decisions. Some of the information or the evidence that we see in our daily lives that is clear and not questionable are things like eyewitness accounts. Now assume that you were at a football match and you saw with your eyes a goal being scored. Is that clear, concise information? Is it disputable, or is it a fact that you saw a goal being scored? With eyewitness accounts, it's easy to see when information is conclusive and when it is not. In the case of the football match where you saw the goal being scored, the information is not in dispute. It's unquestionable. It's very clear. Take the next example. Let's say that you see an aeroplane taking off. With your eyes, you see the plane taking off the ground. Now, is that information questionable? Is it disputable? Or is it conclusive? It's conclusive. It's not disputable because you actually saw the plane take off the ground. So in some cases, information is not in dispute. In these cases, it becomes easy to make a decision. The same situation happens with written documents. Some documents that we encounter have very clear, concise, and undisputable information. Documents such as a birth certificate, which clearly lists when a person was born, where he was born, the date and the time of birth. So that's not disputable information, very clear. Similar situation with examination result slips. If you've sat for an exam and you've gotten the examination result slip, the slip tells you exactly which subjects you took and the marks or the grades you got for each of the subjects. Very clear, not in dispute. Exactly the same situation with a bank statement. If you look at a bank statement, it gives you the name of the person who owns the bank account, the account number, all the transactions that took place during that particular month, and the bank balance, the end balance. Clear, concise, unquestionable information. If only every bit of information that we encountered in our daily lives was like that. If only all the information we came across every time was clear, unquestionable, undisputable. In that case, all the information would be conclusive. With conclusive information, there is no problem in making decisions. Unfortunately, that's not how things happen in daily life. Every single day, we come across information that's not conclusive. It's not clear, it's not complete, it's questionable. And in these cases, we have difficulty making decisions. In many cases, the information that we get is not clear, it's not concise, it's questionable, it's not conclusive. This makes decision making really difficult. In order to make the right decision, we need to know, firstly, is the information credible? And secondly, is it believable? We need a mechanism or a strategy for determining the credibility of information and also to determine how believable the information is. Take, for example, a situation where two boys have gotten into a fight. The first boy says that the second boy started the fight. And the second boy says, I didn't start the fight, the first boy did. What do? Here you have a situation where the information is neither complete, nor is it clear, nor is it unquestionable. You have two completely contradicting parts of the information. Before we can make a decision, we need to know if the information is credible, if it is believable, whether it should be accepted or not. In other words, we have to evaluate the evidence to find the truthfulness of the situation. When we determine the credibility of information, we have to look at several factors. The chart that you see on the screen here helps in determining or segregating information when we are looking at the credibility of evidence. There are three types of evidence that we need to look at. The first is personal evidence, the second is visual evidence, and the third is documentary evidence. For the moment, we will focus on personal evidence. Personal evidence can be broken down into three separate categories. There's eyewitness personal evidence, there's hearsay evidence, and there's a character reference as far as personal evidence goes. We will be looking at all these factors throughout the series, in this episode and in some of the other future episodes. Let's go back to the situation of the two boys fighting earlier. Now, what if we introduce an eyewitness into the scenario? Now there is an eyewitness who actually saw the fight. How does that change the situation? The eyewitness says, I saw the first boy start the fight. Now, does that make it easier for you to make a decision as to who the guilty party is? Or does it complicate the matter further? It depends on a lot of factors regarding the eyewitness. Who is this eyewitness? Is the eyewitness testimony credible? Is the person credible? There's a whole host of factors that we need to consider. And these are some of the things we will be discussing throughout the series. Now, what if there was no eyewitness who saw the fight, but there is a person who is a character witness for one of the boys? Now he says, I've known boy number one, for last 15 years. He is a very good boy. There is no way on earth he could have started the fight. Now this is a character witness from a person who knows one of the parties. Does that make your decision easier? Or again, does it complicate the matter? No easy answer, because it depends. It depends on who has provided the character reference. Is the person biased? Is the person neutral? Can we believe this person's character reference? A whole host of factors that we will be looking at throughout this series. Now let's look at this newspaper report, which says that aliens have landed on Earth. Would you believe this newspaper report, or would you dispute it? Is it believable? Is it credible? We have to ask a number of questions before we can make the decision. What about this newspaper report? It says that new evidence shows eating melon seeds is really good for your health. Would you believe this report without questioning it? Or would you question the information that's provided in the report? Let's take this advertisement as an example. It shows a cosmetic product being used by a celebrity. And the advertisement says, this is a fantastic product that successful people like this celebrity use. Would you believe this advertisement? Or would you question the motive behind the advertiser's message? What about this example? A website from the Flat Earth Society. This society and its members say that the world is flat. The earth is flat. It is not a globe. And all the information that is being fed to us is false. The earth, according to this society and its members, is a piece of flat land. Would you believe the information on this website, or would you question it? We come across various statistics every single day from newspapers, books, magazine articles, TV shows, and so on. Tables, charts, graphs, statistics. Do you believe those statistics as they are presented to you? Do you accept the information that's given to you at face value, or do you question it? In order to make a reasoned decision, we first have to establish the credibility of information. How do we do that? How do we determine the credibility of information? We need a strategy that will allow us to look at information, dissect it, examine it to determine its credibility. In the second part of the series, we will be looking at several reasoning flaws that are commonly used by people. These reasoning flaws lead us to make wrong decisions. And it's easy to fall victim to a reasoning flaw. We will show you how to detect reasoning flaws so that you don't fall victim to errors in judgment. The human race has progressed tremendously over the last several centuries. The major breakthroughs that you saw earlier in this episode have come about as a result of critical thinking. The personalities that we looked at, their discoveries and the inventions that they came up with were a direct result of critical thinking. Follow this series and see how critical thinking can make you a better thinker, a better decision maker, a person who can make reasoned decisions, like the individuals we saw earlier.